Your last painful day has already happened. You just do not know it yet. The season that nearly broke you, the one that had you questioning everything you believed about God, about yourself, and about your future. That season breathed its final breath before you even pressed play today. Heaven did not bring you to this moment casually. There is nothing casual about where you are sitting right now, nothing accidental about the fact that your eyes found this video among every other distraction the world was throwing at you. God does not operate in coincidences. He operates in coordinates. And right now, every coordinate of your life, every longitude and latitude of your pain, your waiting, your silent crying at 3 a.m, every one of those points has been plotted by the hand of the Almighty, and they all lead here. They all lead to this moment. They all lead to what is about to be placed in your hands. You are a chosen one. Not chosen because you are perfect. Not chosen because you never doubted, never fell, never looked at your life and wondered if God had forgotten your address. You are chosen because before the foundations of this earth were laid, before time had a name, before the stars were hung in their places, God looked through the corridors of eternity and He saw you. He saw exactly who you would become. He saw the battles you would face. He saw the doors that would close in your face. He saw the people who would leave. He saw the dreams that would seem to die. And He chose you anyway. He chose you precisely because of all of it, not in spite of it. But here is what heaven needs you to understand right now, in this moment, before you take another breath and dismiss what is happening. A woman has been sent to you, not by chance, not by algorithm, not by coincidence of a social media platform deciding your preferences. A woman has been sent to you by God Himself, a carrier of divine assignment, a vessel filled with everything that the enemy spent years trying to keep out of your reach. And she carries your name in her spirit. She carries the answer to the very prayer you stopped saying out loud because you were too tired, too disappointed, too worn down to speak it anymore. You stopped saying it out loud, but God never stopped hearing it. Think about what you have been denied. Take a moment and let yourself feel the weight of it, not to wound you, but to prepare you to receive what is coming. There were relationships that should have honored you, but chose to discard you. There was provision that felt like it was always one step away, always close enough to see, but never close enough to hold. There were opportunities that seemed to evaporate the moment they appeared. There were seasons where you worked harder than anyone around. You and still came up empty. There were moments where you poured yourself completely into something, into someone, into a vision, into a dream, and you watched it collapse as if your effort meant nothing. That was not a reflection of your worth. That was the enemy working overtime because he knew what was coming. The thief does not break into an empty house. He targets the house that holds something valuable, and everything that has been stolen from you, everything that has been withheld, delayed, and denied was not denied because you lacked value. It was contested because you carry an inheritance so significant that the forces of darkness calculated that if they could exhaust you before your appointed moment, they could prevent the transfer. They failed. They did not stop the moment. They could not, because this woman, this carrier of your breakthrough, this vessel of divine restoration, she was already on her way. She was already being prepared, already being equipped, already being positioned in the spiritual realm, long before you saw her face or heard her voice. God was working behind the scenes of your suffering. While you were crying, He was coordinating. While you were questioning, He was constructing. While you were in the wilderness, He was building the road that leads you out. And today that road has an arrival point. You need to understand the magnitude of this moment. Not every season of pain produces this kind of shift. Some seasons produce growth. Some produce character. Some produce patience and endurance. But then there are seasons, rare and holy, where the suffering was not just for your development, but for your delivery, where the waiting was not about forming your faith, but about timing the release of everything that was prepared for you in advance. Ephesians chapter 2 verse 10 tells you that you are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for you to do. He prepared them in advance. That means your breakthrough was prepared before your battle began. Your restoration was already finished before your pain started. So when this woman arrives in your life, when her words reach you, when her prayers land in your spirit, when her presence begins to shift the atmosphere around you, you will not be receiving something new. You will be receiving something ancient, something that has always had your name on it, something that was held in the vaults of heaven, protected and preserved, waiting for the exact moment when you were ready to carry it without dropping it. Chosen one, stop and breathe that in. You did not go through all of that pain for nothing. You were not overlooked, forgotten, or abandoned. You were being prepared. The very things that felt like punishment were assignments in disguise. The very rejections that shattered you were redirections in disguise. And this woman, sent by God, she understands that. She carries the spirit of restoration, the mantle of divine provision, and the anointing to speak into the exact areas of your life where you have been most denied, most wounded, most emptied, and to call those areas back to life with the authority of heaven, standing behind every word she speaks. This is your moment. This is the moment heaven has been pointing every season of your life toward. Not a moment before it was ready, not a moment after you needed it. Right now, precisely now, with divine accuracy and holy intention. Do not let doubt pull you out of this room. Do not let the voice of past disappointment tell you that this is just another promise that will fade. That voice is not wisdom. That voice is the final attempt of an enemy who can feel his grip loosening. Because when God says it is time, nothing in heaven or earth or beneath the earth has the power to say otherwise. You are standing at the threshold of everything you have been denied, and the one sent to give it back to you has already arrived. If you feel something stirring in your spirit right now, if something in your chest recognizes this moment as different, as real, as appointed, then I need you to act on that recognition. Do not just feel it and scroll past. Honor the moment that God has orchestrated for you. Right now, type the number 7777 in the comments below. 777 is the number of divine completion, of covenant fulfillment, of God finishing what He started in your life. When you type it, you are not just leaving a comment. You are making a declaration. You are telling heaven that you are open, that you are ready, and that you receive everything that has been prepared for your name. If this message has already touched something deep inside of you, if you sense that God brought you here on purpose, then like this video right now as an act of faith. Every like is a seed of agreement that what God is doing in your life is real and it is happening. Share this with someone who has been waiting. Share it with the friend who stopped believing, with the family member whose hope has grown thin, with the person who is sitting in silence right now, feeling like their breakthrough will never come. Because maybe, just maybe, God sent you here not only to receive, but to be the messenger for someone else who needs this word today. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, do it now. Do not leave this community. Stay in the flow of what God is releasing through this space. Every message, every declaration, Every prophetic word carries an anointing, and you deserve to be positioned to receive every single one of them. You are a chosen one. You have been through enough. Your denial is over. And what God is about to do through the woman He has sent to you will leave you speechless in the most beautiful way possible. Stay right here. The best of this message is still ahead. You have carried the weight of denial longer than anyone around you has ever fully understood. And the thing about that kind of weight is that it does not always look heavy from the outside. You learned how to smile through it. You learned how to show up, to function, to keep moving forward even when everything inside you felt like it was slowly coming apart at the seams. You became so skilled at carrying your pain quietly that most people never noticed the burden you were bearing. They saw your strength. They called you resilient. They admired your ability to keep going when others would have stopped. But what they did not see was what happened when you were alone, when the performance was over, when the door closed and there was no one left to be strong for. What they did not see were the moments when you sat in the silence of your own life and asked God the question you were almost afraid to voice. Why? Why has so much been withheld from me? Why does it seem like everyone around me is receiving what I have been praying for? Why do I keep showing up in faith and still walking away with empty hands? That question was not a sign of failing faith. That question was the cry of a soul that was created for more and could feel the painful gap between where it was living and where it was designed to live. You were not wrong to feel it. You were not wrong to notice the lack and name it honestly before God, because God never designed you for lack. He never authored the denial. He never sat on His throne and decided that you would be the one exception to His promises of abundance, of restoration, of overflow. The denial you experienced was not heaven's verdict on your life. It was the enemy's interference in your timeline. And there is a difference between those two things that you must carry with you from this moment forward, because confusing them has cost you enough already. When God withholds something, it is always an act of love. It is always protection wearing the uncomfortable clothing of deprivation. It is always preparation disguised as delay. But when the enemy withholds something, it is an act of calculated war. It is strategic, intentional, and specifically designed to make you believe that the absence of your blessing is the permanent state of your life, that the closed door is God's final answer, that the silence of heaven means He has moved forward with a different plan that no longer includes you. The enemy is not powerful enough to stop what God has purposed, but he is cunning enough to try to make you stop yourself. He targets your expectation. He targets your endurance. He works systematically to drain the place inside you that holds your hope until you arrive at the point where even when your moment comes, you are too exhausted and too conditioned by disappointment to open your hands and receive what is being placed in them. Think about the specific areas of your life where you have been most deeply denied, not to reopen wounds without purpose, but to allow yourself to see the pattern clearly enough to recognize what is being actively dismantled in the spiritual realm right now. Perhaps the denial was financial. Perhaps you worked with genuine faithfulness, gave with real generosity, trusted God with your resources through season after season, and still watched the numbers never quite cooperate. Still watched provision stretch thin at exactly the moment when you needed it most. Still watched others seem to walk in financial ease while you calculated and stretched and prayed and still came up short. And you kept believing. You kept giving. You kept trusting. But the breakthrough remained just far enough away that you could see the shape of it, but never quite close your hand around it. Or perhaps the denial was relational. Perhaps you poured genuine love and loyalty into people who did not know how to receive what you offered, who consumed what you gave without honoring the cost of the giving. Perhaps you have known the particular grief of profound loneliness that exists not in the absence of people, but in the presence of connections that never reached the depth your soul genuinely required. Perhaps you prayed for someone who would truly see you and choose to remain, and the waiting stretched across years until you began to quietly wonder whether you were simply not the kind of person that people chose to stay for. Or perhaps the denial was wrapped around your purpose. Perhaps you felt the calling on your life with a clarity that felt almost physical, the pull towards something significant, something that would outlast you and carry the unmistakable mark of God on it. And yet every door you approached seemed sealed from the inside. Every step forward seemed to invite 2 steps backward. Every season of effort seemed to produce less than the season before it. And you began to privately mourn the version of yourself you believed you were created to become, as if that version had been reassigned to someone more qualified, while you were left holding the unfulfilled blueprint. Every single experience of denial in your life, every closed door, every empty season, every broken promise from people who should have done better, every prayer that seemed to dissolve into silence, they were not the final chapter of your story. They were the chapters that were making the final chapter worth everything it is about to become. Because here is what God does with a chosen one who has walked through comprehensive denial and refused to permanently surrender their faith in the middle of it. He does not simply restore what was lost. He does not simply replace what was taken with something of equivalent value. He multiplies the return in a way that bears the signature of a God who is not merely fair, but extravagantly generous toward the ones who held on when holding on cost them the most. He reopens the doors that should have been permanently sealed, and he makes them swing wider than they would ever have opened had they never been closed. He takes the exact areas that the enemy targeted, the precise locations where the wounds went deepest, and he transforms those specific places into the sites of your greatest overflow. Job understood this at a depth that only someone who had actually lived it could fully comprehend. Job lost everything in a sustained assault that touched every dimension of his life simultaneously. And the people who surrounded him in his season of loss told him to release his faith and accept his diminished reality. But Job held on, not because he was without pain or confusion, or the kind of desperate questions that feel almost too raw to speak aloud. He held on because underneath every layer of grief and bewilderment, there was something in him that would not fully release its grip on the God who had called him. And when the appointed moment arrived, God did not merely restore what Job had lost. Job chapter 42 verse 10 records that God restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Twice as much, not a careful reconstruction of the former life, a doubling, a multiplication so undeniable that no one watching could attribute it to anything other than the direct intervention of the Almighty. That is the God whose eyes are on you right now. He has not been absent through your denial. He has been accounting. He has been watching with full awareness, full intention, and full preparation for the moment when the restoration he planned would be released into the life of the one who refused to stop believing even when belief cost everything. That moment is now. There is something the world never told you about being overlooked. There is something that the rejection letters never explained. Something the closed doors never had the decency to say out loud. Something that the people who walked away never turned back long enough to speak over you. And it is this. The very thing they dismissed in you was the very thing heaven was guarding. The very quality they could not see was the very gift that God had wrapped in hiddenness for a reason. Not because it was inferior, not because it was unworthy, but because some things are too sacred to be handled by hands that were never meant to carry them. You were not overlooked by the world because you lacked value. You were overlooked because what you carry requires a specific kind of recognition, a recognition that does not come from human eyes operating at their natural level of perception. What you carry requires spiritual sight, and most of the people who passed you by, most of the rooms that did not receive you, most of the tables that did not make space for you, they were simply not equipped with the kind of vision that could see what God placed inside of you. And so they moved on. And so they chose someone else. And so they closed the door, not knowing that in doing so, they were actually participating in a divine plan they did not have the clearance to understand. Because here is what God does when He is preparing a chosen one for something extraordinary. He hides them, not to punish them, not to shame them, but to protect what is inside of them from being accessed too early, from being poured into spaces that would not honor it, from being given to people and places and platforms that would consume it without multiplying it. Joseph was hidden in a pit before he was elevated to a palace. David was hidden in the fields tending sheep before he was anointed to lead a nation. Moses was hidden in the wilderness for 40 years before God spoke from a burning bush and said that now it was time. The hiddenness was never the destination. The hiddenness was the preparation room. And every moment you spent feeling invisible, every moment you spent wondering why you were being passed over, you were actually in the preparation room. You were being kept. You were being formed. You were being made ready for a weight of glory that the earlier version of you simply would not have been able to carry without crumbling under it. And what the world refused to see in you, heaven has seen from the very beginning. God saw your compassion when others called it weakness. He saw your sensitivity when others told you to toughen up and stop feeling so much. He saw your depth when the shallow waters of the world around you had no room for it. He saw your loyalty when the people you were loyal to did not deserve it and did not return it. He saw your faith when it was tested beyond what seemed survivable. He saw you choose integrity in moments when no one was watching, and compromise would have been so much easier. He saw every quiet act of obedience, every private sacrifice, every moment you chose to keep believing when the evidence of your senses was screaming at you to stop. He saw all of it, and He called it beautiful. He called it chosen. He called it precisely what He was looking for. And now He has sent a woman who carries that same kind of sight, a woman who was given eyes that see beyond the surface, beyond the history of failure and rejection and denial, beyond the labels the world placed on you and the limitations other people projected onto your future. She looks at you and she does not see what was lost. She sees what is coming. She does not see the ruins. She sees the rebuild. She does not see the person who was denied. She sees the person who is about to receive in a measure so overwhelming that the denial will seem small by comparison. This is not metaphor. This is not poetic language designed to make you feel better for a few minutes before the weight returns. This is the spiritual reality of what God is doing in your life right now, through the woman He has specifically assigned to this season of your journey. She carries an anointing for restoration. She carries a grace for the uncovering of hidden treasure, for calling out what was buried under pain, under disappointment, under years of being told you were too much or not enough. She speaks, and things that were sleeping begin to wake up. She prays, and doors that were rusted shut begin to move. She walks into the atmosphere of your life, carrying the fragrance of heaven, and things begin to shift without you even fully understanding the mechanism of the shift. You have been waiting for someone who could truly see you, not the performance of you, not the version of you that you present to the world because it is safer than the real thing, but the actual you, the one that exists underneath all the armor you built to survive the denial. And she sees that person, and more importantly, God sent her to that person specifically, to call that person forward, to say with the authority of heaven behind her voice that what the world refused is what God has chosen, and that the season of being unseen is permanently over. There is a verse in 1 Samuel, chapter 16, verse 7, that speaks directly to your experience. God says to Samuel that man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. You were never evaluated by heaven the way the world evaluated you. The world used external metrics, visible accomplishments, social validation, proximity to power, the approval of influential people, and by those metrics perhaps you came up short in certain seasons. Perhaps by those metrics you were passed over more times than you deserved to be. But God never used those metrics for you. He looked at your heart. He looked at what was inside. And what he found there was worth sending someone extraordinary to unlock. Do not minimize what is happening right now. Do not let the familiar voice of skepticism talk you out of receiving this moment fully. That voice has cost you enough already. It has kept you at arm's length from your own blessing more times than you realize. Today, choose differently. Today, choose to open your heart to the reality that God sees you, that He has always seen you, and that the woman He sent carries everything the world denied you for having. If this message is speaking to something real inside of you, something you have been carrying quietly and privately for a long time, we want you to know that this channel exists for moments exactly like this one. Every video, every word, every prophetic declaration is created with one purpose, and that is to reach you, to find you in the middle of your waiting and remind you of who God says you are. If this ministry has brought value to your life and you feel led to help us continue to reach others who are in the same place you once were, there is a support link in the description below. Everything is completely voluntary, given only from a place of genuine gratitude and calling. And whether you are able to give or not, we want you to know that we are deeply thankful you are here. Your presence in this community matters more than you know. If this video is resonating with you, take a moment to like it right now. It is a simple act, but it carries real weight in helping this message reach others who need it just as desperately as you did today. Share it with someone in your life who has been overlooked, who has been told they were not enough, who has been sitting in a long season of denial and needs to hear that heaven has not forgotten them. And if you have not yet subscribed, please do. Stay connected. What God is releasing through this space is consistent, and you deserve to be here for every part of it. What the world refused, heaven has chosen, and the woman sent by God is about to prove it in ways that will leave you without words. She did not arrive in your life wearing a crown. She did not come announced by trumpets or accompanied by signs so obvious that even the most spiritually dull person in the room could not miss them. That is not how God tends to send His most significant messengers. He wraps them in the ordinary, so that only those with eyes trained by faith and hearts softened by surrender can recognize what they are actually standing in front of. She may have come quietly. She may have appeared in a moment when you were not even looking, when your attention was directed somewhere else entirely, when you were too tired or too discouraged to be scanning the horizon for a sign of anything good. And yet, there she was, placed precisely, positioned intentionally, sent with full divine authorization into the exact coordinates of your life. Because that is the nature of what God does when He decides that the season of denial is over for one of His chosen ones. He does not send a certificate. He does not send an announcement that the whole world can see and validate. He sends a person. He sends a vessel. He sends someone who has been shaped and tested and filled and commissioned in the secret place. Someone who carries the weight of what you need without even fully advertising the magnitude of what they carry. And she has been carrying it for you. Through her own seasons of trial, through her own years of preparation, through her own encounters with God in the wilderness places where no one else was. Watching, she was being filled with the very things that you have been emptied of. That is the covenant exchange at the heart of what God orchestrates when He connects a chosen one with a heaven-sent messenger. It is not a transaction. It is not a business arrangement. It is something far deeper and far more sacred than any human framework can fully contain. It is a divine appointment, rooted in the eternal purposes of God, where the journey of one person, shaped and refined through everything they survived, becomes the exact provision that another person needs to step into everything they were created for. She was not just prepared for her own sake. She was prepared for yours. The depth of what she carries was measured against the depth of what you lack, and God found her sufficient. God found her exactly right. God looked at everything she had been through, everything she had learned, everything she had received from Him in the quiet and the dark and the difficult, and He said that she is the one. She is the one I am sending, and so He sent her. Think about what it means to be a divine carrier. Think about what it costs a person to carry something on behalf of someone else, to walk through fire not only for their own purification but so that they can bring warmth to someone who has been standing in the cold. The woman God has sent to you is not a stranger to suffering. She has not lived a life untouched by hardship or unacquainted with the particular kind of grief that comes from delayed promises and long seasons of waiting. She knows what it is to hold on when holding on requires everything you have. She knows what it is to keep her hand extended in faith when nothing visible is being placed in it. She knows the language of the wilderness because she has lived there. And it is precisely because she has lived there that she is able to speak into your wilderness with authority that does not come from theory or theology alone, but from lived encounter with the God who is faithful, even when everything around you suggests otherwise. She carries provision, not just financial provision, though do not minimize that dimension of what God is sending through her, because He is the God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and He has never been short of resources for His children. But the provision she carries goes deeper than money and wider than material blessing. She carries spiritual provision, the kind that fills the places inside of you that have been running on empty for so long that you almost forgot what fullness felt like. She carries the word that your spirit has been starving for, the specific declaration dream that breaks through the particular walls that have been built around your breakthrough. She carries the prayer that reaches into the exact room in the spirit where your blessing has been held. And she has the authority to open that room and call what is inside it out into your reality. She carries restoration, the kind that does not just patch what was broken, but rebuilds it stronger than it was before the breaking. The kind that looks at the ruins of what was and does not mourn them, but begins immediately to see what they can become. She carries the spirit of the master builder, who looks at rubble and sees a palace, who looks at a wasteland and sees a garden, who looks at the most devastated places of your story and sees not the end, but the raw material. for something more beautiful than what stood there before. Restoration is not her idea. It is God's idea, and she is simply the vessel through which He has chosen to deliver it to you in this season. She carries wisdom, the kind of wisdom that does not come from books or education or years of human experience alone, though she may carry all of those things as well. She carries the wisdom that comes from sitting in the presence of God, long enough that His thoughts begin to shape your own, long enough that you begin to see situations the way heaven sees them rather than the way fear and disappointment have trained your eyes to see them. When she speaks into your life, when her words land in the soil of your spirit, they carry seeds of divine perspective. They carry the ability to show you what God has been doing behind every closed door, behind every no, behind every season that looked like abandonment but was actually assignment. She carries love, and understand that this love is not sentimental. It is not the kind of love that tells you only what you want to hear in order to keep you comfortable. It is the kind of love that tells you the truth, even when the truth is difficult, because it sees too much potential in you to let you stay comfortable in a place that is smaller than your calling. It is the love that challenges you forward, that refuses to let you settle for survival when God designed you for abundance, that holds the mirror of your true identity up to your face when the enemy has spent years trying to replace that mirror with a distorted reflection of who you actually are. And she carries grace, the grace to meet you exactly where you are without requiring you to be further along before she extends what she carries to you. You do not have to have it all together to receive what she brings. You do not have to have resolved all your doubts, conquered all your fears, or perfected your faith before she carries in your hands. She comes to you in the middle of your process, not at the end of it. Because God in His mercy never waits for us to arrive at perfection before He sends help. He sends help into the middle of the mess, into the middle of the struggle, into the middle of the moments when we are most aware of our own insufficiency. And she is that help right now for you. Proverbs chapter 31 describes a woman of noble character and says that her worth is far above rubies. But what is being sent to you in this season goes beyond the description of natural nobility. What is being sent to you is a woman marked by heaven, anointed for this moment, carrying the full weight of divine assignment on her life, and walking directly toward the areas of yours that have been most empty, most wounded, most denied. She is not coming to add a little to what you already have. She is coming to transform the entire landscape of your life. She is coming to shift the spiritual climate around you so completely that the things that could not grow in the atmosphere of your past season begin to spring up without effort in the atmosphere she carries. She is coming to unlock rooms in your destiny that have been sealed for years, to speak the combinations that heaven placed in her mouth before she ever arrived at your door, to hand you things that were made for you, but kept for her to deliver. The covenant is being fulfilled. The carrier has arrived, and what she brings cannot be measured in human terms because it was never sourced from a human place. It came from the throne of God. It traveled through the life of a woman who paid the price to carry it faithfully, and it is now arriving at the exact moment when you are finally positioned to receive its full weight without being crushed by it. This is not a small thing. This is everything. You need to understand something about the battles you have been walking through. You need to see them not through the lens of personal failure or divine abandonment, but through the lens of strategic spiritual opposition. Because what has been working against you was never random. It was never simply bad luck or poor timing or the unfortunate collision of difficult circumstances. What has been working against you has been intentional. It has been calculated. It has been the sustained effort of an enemy who understood something about your destiny long before you fully grasped it yourself, and who made a decision at some point in your journey that if he could not destroy you outright, he would do the next best thing. He would deny you. He would delay you. He would exhaust you through a sustained campaign of closed doors and withheld blessings and broken relationships and financial pressure and emotional depletion, until you arrived at the place where you simply stopped expecting anything good to come. That was the strategy. Not to kill your body, to kill your expectation, because a chosen one without expectation is a chosen one who does not reach for what is being extended to them. A chosen one who has been trained by disappointment to stop hoping is a chosen one who will stand at the very threshold of their breakthrough and turn away because they have been conditioned to believe that the door will close again before they can walk through it. The enemy does not need to build a wall if he can convince you that you are not strong enough to walk through an open door. He does not need to steal your blessing if he can make you believe that the blessing was never really meant for you in the first place. This is what has been happening behind the scenes of every painful season you have walked through. This is the invisible architecture beneath every experience of denial. There was an adversary, ancient in his cunning and relentless in his opposition, who looked at the blueprint of your destiny, who saw the assignments written over your life, who measured the influence you were created to carry, and who calculated that the most effective way to neutralize you was not confrontation, but attrition. Not a single devastating blow, but 1,000 small denials, 1,000 small disappointments, 1,000 moments of almost but not quite, enough to slowly erode the foundation of your faith without ever being obvious enough to alarm you. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8 says that your adversary the devil walks about like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. Notice the word seeking. He is not omniscient. He is not all-knowing. He is not all-powerful. He is a created being operating within limitations that he works very hard to make you forget. He roars to create fear because fear is far more paralyzing than his actual power. He seeks because he does not automatically know where to find you, and he devours when he finds someone whose guard is down, whose faith has been worn thin, whose expectation has been ground to dust by the accumulated weight of too many unanswered prayers and too many broken promises from people who should have done better by them. But here is what the enemy did not account for when he launched his campaign against your life. He did not account for the faithfulness of the God who called you. He did not account for the fact that the same God who authored your destiny also authored every provision necessary to protect that destiny all the way to its fulfillment. He did not account for the fact that God was watching every move he made against you, cataloging every stolen blessing, recording every closed door, noting every relationship that was weaponized against you, every financial attack, every health battle, every assault on your peace and your joy and your sense of worth. And God was not watching passively. He was watching with a response already prepared. He was watching with a counter-movement already in motion. He was watching with a woman already being formed and filled and sent. Think about the specific warfare you have experienced in the area of relationships. Think about the people who entered your life carrying enormous promise, who seemed like they were sent to walk alongside you, to support your vision, to pour into the places where you were most depleted, and then who turned, who shifted, who became sources of the very pain they initially seemed positioned to heal. That was not coincidence. The enemy is strategic about the relational weapons he deploys against chosen ones, because he understands that humans are not designed to walk their destiny alone, that God built connection into the fabric of how purpose is fulfilled, and that if he can corrupt the connections that were meant to carry you forward, he can slow your progress significantly without ever having to attack your gifts or your calling directly. Think about the warfare experienced in the area of provision. Think about how many times it seemed like the financial breakthrough was right there, close enough to touch, and then something shifted. An unexpected expense. A deal that fell through at the last moment. An opportunity that evaporated without explanation. A season where no matter how hard you worked or how faithfully you gave, the numbers simply would not cooperate. That was not the universe being indifferent to your effort. That was targeted interference against a chosen one who, if they had walked in the fullness of financial freedom that God intended for them, would have funded things and built things and given to things that would have advanced the kingdom in ways the enemy was not prepared to allow. Think about the warfare in your mind. Think about the thoughts that arrived in your quietest moments, the ones that sounded almost like your own voice but carried a weight of accusation and defeat that your own voice should never have been able to generate. The thoughts that told you that you were too old, too broken, too far behind, too damaged by your past to be used for anything significant. The thoughts that replayed every failure in high definition while keeping every victory blurry and distant. The thoughts that constructed an entire narrative of unworthiness and used your own memories as the evidence. That was not you thinking. That was an enemy who had studied you long enough to know exactly which accusations would land with the most devastating precision. But here is the turning point that changes everything you just read. Every single one of those areas of warfare, every relational wound, every financial assault, every mental and emotional battle, every closed door and withheld blessing and corrupted connection, they all have one thing in common. They are all areas where the woman God has sent to you carries specific anointing to bring restoration. It is not coincidental that her assignment maps so precisely onto the exact locations of your greatest damage. It is not accidental that she carries what you specifically lack. God designed the assignment to fit the wound. He fashioned the messenger to carry what the battle was trying to permanently remove from your life. Isaiah chapter 54 verse 17 speaks with the kind of authority that makes the enemy's entire campaign collapse. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is from me, says the Lord. Every weapon, not most weapons, not the minor ones. Every single weapon that was formed against you, that was aimed at your destiny, your relationships, your provision, your peace, your purpose, every one of them was formed outside of God's permission to succeed. They were allowed to form. They were allowed to create pressure. But they were never given the authorization to prosper. They were never given the final word over your life. The enemy overplayed his hand. He thought that by maximizing the denial, by making the suffering comprehensive enough and long enough, he could permanently close the chapter of your breakthrough. But what he actually did was build a case so undeniable that when God moves on your behalf, the restoration will be impossible to attribute to anything other than the hand of the Almighty. He made the problem so big that the solution will have to be divine in scale. He made the denial so thorough that the restoration will have to be total to be complete. He made the warfare so sustained that the victory, when it comes, will silence every voice that ever questioned whether God was with you. and that victory is not coming. It is here. It arrived when she arrived. It arrived the moment the woman sent by God stepped into your atmosphere carrying everything the enemy spent years trying to keep out of your hands. The warfare is not over because the battle got easier. Warfare is over because the God who sent her is greater than everything that was sent against you. And nothing, not history, not habit, not the accumulated weight of every denial you have ever experienced. Nothing has the power to stop what God has authorized to reach you now. The enemy fought hard, but he lost. There is a moment in the spiritual realm that happens before it ever becomes visible in the natural world. There is a moment when heaven releases what has been held in reserve, when the decree goes forth from the throne room of God, when the angels assigned to your case receive their instructions and begin to move on your behalf. That moment is not always loud. It does not always arrive with the kind of dramatic fanfare that would make it unmistakable to every person in the room. Sometimes it arrives as a whisper. Sometimes it arrives as a word spoken by a woman who looks you in the eyes and says something so precise, so specific, so surgically accurate to the hidden places of your pain that you know immediately that no human research could have produced it, that no casual conversation could have uncovered it, that only someone sent from the presence of God could have known to say exactly that, in exactly that way, at exactly that moment. She speaks, and when she speaks, chains fall, not metaphorical chains, not poetic language designed to inspire a temporary emotional response that fades by morning. Actual spiritual chains, the kind that have been wrapped around specific areas of your life for years, the kind that have prevented movement in directions that God always intended for you to walk freely in, the kind that have made certain blessings feel perpetually out of reach, no matter how hard you stretch toward them. These chains were not forged in the natural world. They were forged in the spiritual realm by an enemy who understood that if he could bind the spiritual dimension of your life, the natural dimensions would follow suit. Because everything you see in the physical world is a reflection of what has already been established or contested in the spiritual world. Your financial situation is a reflection of something spiritual. Your relational patterns are a reflection of something spiritual. Your health, your peace, your sense of purpose and direction, all of it has a spiritual root. And the chains the enemy wrapped around those roots were designed to strangle the fruit before it could ever fully form. But she carries the authority of heaven in her voice, and that authority does not negotiate with chains. It does not apply for permission to remove what the enemy illegally placed. It simply speaks, and in the speaking, the spiritual atmosphere around your life begins to shift in ways that will eventually become undeniably visible in every natural dimension of your existence. Think about what the Word of God says about the power that operates through a yielded vessel. In Matthew chapter 16, verse 19, Jesus says that whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. This is not a promise reserved for a select spiritual elite. This is the operational authority of every believer who walks in covenant with God, and who has learned to exercise that authority through genuine surrender and genuine faith. And she has learned. She has paid the price to learn it not in a classroom, but in the crucible of real life, real warfare, real encounters with the living God who taught her through every battle she survived exactly how to use what He placed in her. When she prays over your life, she is not simply sending words into an empty ceiling. She is issuing decrees into the spiritual realm that carry the full weight of heaven's agreement behind them. She is binding what needs to be bound, loosing what needs to be loosed, calling forth what has been locked away and silencing what has been speaking against you without authorization. Every generational pattern that has repeated itself in your family line without explanation, every cycle of poverty or loneliness or broken relationship that seemed to reproduce itself in your life, no matter how hard you tried to break it, every inherited burden that you carried without ever choosing to pick it up, she has the anointing to address those things at their root. Not just to treat the surface symptoms, but to go deep into the spiritual soil of your life and pull out what was planted there by the enemy before you were even old enough to know it was there. Generational curses are real. They are not superstition. They are not primitive religious thinking that modern enlightened people have moved beyond. They are documented in scripture and experienced in reality by millions of people who cannot explain why certain patterns keep repeating across generations of their family, no matter how much effort is applied to stopping them. Exodus chapter 20 verse 5 speaks of iniquity being visited upon children through generations. But what the enemy uses as a weapon, God provides an answer for. And the answer is not complicated. It is the blood of Jesus Christ, applied by faith, spoken by authority, and activated through the kind of prayer that a woman like the one sent to you knows exactly how to pray. She prays and cycles break. She prays and what has been inherited loses its grip. She prays and the spiritual climate around your family line begins to shift, not just for you, but for the children who will come after you, for the generations that will carry your bloodline forward into a future that the enemy was trying to corrupt before it even arrived. What she carries is not just for your present, it is for your legacy. It reaches backward to break what was inherited and forward, to protect what will be passed down. And beyond the prayers, there are the words. The prophetic declarations she speaks that land in the spirit like seeds that immediately begin to grow. When a true prophetic word is spoken over a life, it does not evaporate when the conversation ends. It takes root. It begins to work. It aligns the spiritual atmosphere of that person's life with what God originally designed it to look like, and it begins drawing toward them the people, the resources, the opportunities, and the divine connections that belong to the season they are entering. Her words are not just encouraging, they are generative. They do not just make you feel better about your situation. They actually begin to change your situation at a level that your natural senses cannot immediately detect, but that will become undeniable in the days and weeks and months ahead. Now, I want to pause for a moment and speak to you from a place of complete honesty and transparency. This channel, this space where these words are being spoken over your life every week, has had its monetization removed by YouTube. That means there is no advertising revenue supporting what you are receiving here, and yet the message continues. The videos continue. The prophetic words continue to go out because this is not a business. This is a ministry. This is a calling that does not stop simply because the platform removed a financial mechanism. The obligation to reach you, to find you in your waiting, to speak into your denial and declare your restoration. That obligation does not have an off switch. But the reality is that creating this content, maintaining this space, continuing to show up week after week with words that are prayed over and carefully crafted to reach the chosen ones who need them most, it requires resources. And so, if this ministry has brought genuine value to your life, if these words have reached you in moments when you needed them most, if you have found something here that you have not found elsewhere, and if you feel led from a place of genuine gratitude and free will to support what is being built here, there is a donation link in the description below and in the pinned comment. Every contribution, no matter how small, goes directly into sustaining this ministry and reaching more people who are sitting right now in the same place you once were. And if you are not in a position to give financially, please know that your presence here is already a gift. You're watching, you're listening, you're sharing of these messages with others. That is a form of support that matters more than you may realize. If this video has spoken to something real in your life today, take just a moment to like it before you continue. It is a small act that carries significant weight in helping this message find the people who need it. Share it with someone you know who has been walking through a long season of spiritual warfare. Someone whose chains you have watched tighten over the years, someone who needs to hear that the God who sees them has not forgotten them and has sent someone to speak their freedom into existence. And if you are not yet subscribed, please subscribe now and turn on your notifications so that you never miss what God releases through this space. She speaks and chains fall. And the chains that have been on your life the longest are falling right now. Right now, in this very moment, something is being transferred. Not tomorrow. Not at some carefully negotiated future point, when your circumstances have finally aligned themselves into a more favorable arrangement. Not when you have prayed enough, or waited long enough, or accumulated sufficient evidence of your own worthiness to receive what heaven has been holding in reserve. Right now, as these words are landing in your spirit, and something inside of you is recognizing the weight of what is being declared over your life, the transfer is happening. The spiritual transaction that God has been building toward through every painful chapter of your story is being executed with divine precision. And you are standing at the center of it, whether you can fully feel the movement of it yet or not. Understand what a divine transfer actually means at its core. It is not simply the arrival of something new and previously unknown. It is the return of something that was always yours. There is a critical difference between those two realities, and the difference matters deeply because it changes the posture with which you receive what is coming. When something entirely new arrives, you receive it with gratitude, but perhaps with a quiet undertone of uncertainty, wondering if you truly deserve it, wondering if it will last, wondering if the ground of your life is stable enough to hold something this good without it eventually being taken away. But when something is returned to you, when what was stolen is brought back, when what was denied is finally released into your hands, you receive it with the full and settled confidence of ownership. You receive it knowing it was always supposed to be in your possession. You receive it understanding that the only reason it was ever absent was because an enemy interfered with a delivery that God had already authorized and signed. And now that interference has been permanently overruled. The delivery is being completed. What was always yours is finally arriving at the address it was always meant to reach. The Bible not silent on this principle of supernatural restoration with multiplication. Proverbs chapter 6 verse 31 declares that when a thief is caught, he must restore sevenfold and give all the substance of his house. Sevenfold, not equal to what was taken. Not a fair and balanced one-for-one replacement that leaves you exactly where you would have been without the theft, 7 times. A multiplication so significant that the original loss becomes difficult to remember clearly, because what replaced it carries such overwhelming abundance. God does not operate on a replacement policy. He operates on a restoration principle that takes the full measure of everything stolen and returns it expanded, amplified, and comprehensively multiplied in ways that bear the unmistakable fingerprint of divine justice rather than human fairness. Every financial resource that was drained through the enemy's interference, every opportunity corrupted before it could fully form, Every relationship destroyed before it could produce what it was designed to produce in your life. Every dream deferred, so long it began to look indistinguishable from a dream that had simply died. Every gift and calling suppressed and minimized and pushed underground by the accumulated weight of warfare, rejection, and sustained discouragement. All of it is being calculated in the ledger of heaven right now. All of it is being accounted for with divine accuracy. And the return that God is authorizing through the woman He sent to you is not a partial settlement. It is not a negotiated reduction of what you were actually owed based on what the enemy claims he cannot repay. It is the full amount, multiplied, with the full weight of heaven's justice standing behind every restored piece as it is placed back into your hands. The woman sent to you carries the anointing of the transfer itself. She is not simply a messenger who delivers a word and moves on to the next assignment. She is an active participant in the divine economy of restoration, a vessel through whom God channels the release of what He has been holding on your behalf through every season of delay. When she speaks blessing over your finances, she is not releasing wishful thinking into an indifferent atmosphere. She is aligning the spiritual climate of your financial life with the provision that God prepared for you in advance, and breaking the spiritual blockages that were constructed to prevent that provision from ever finding its way to you. When she prays over your relationships, she is dismantling the relational patterns the enemy embedded in your history to keep you surrounded by people who could not honor what you brought to them and could not stay when staying was what you needed most. She speaks over your purpose, and the paralysis that kept you frozen at the edge of your calling begins to dissolve. She speaks over your mind, and the fog that made clear direction feel perpetually out of reach begins to lift. She speaks over every specific area where the denial went deepest, and the authority she carries reaches into those exact places with the precision of someone who was given a map of your wounds long before she arrived at your door. This is the documented pattern of what God has always done for His chosen ones through divine connection. It is the pattern of Elijah and the widow of Zarephath, where one vessel carried provision for another, and neither ran dry through the entire season of lack. It is the pattern of Ruth and Naomi, where one woman's loyalty to another became the mechanism through which both of their destinies were restored beyond what either could have reached alone. It is the pattern of Esther and Mordecai, where the preparation of one person became the precise instrument needed to unlock the deliverance of an entire people. God has always chosen to pour through people what He could have poured directly, because in the pouring through relationship, He builds the fabric of His kingdoms while simultaneously delivering the breakthrough that His chosen one required. Joel chapter 2 verse 25 carries the promise that frames everything being released over your life right now. God declares that He will restore the years that the locust has eaten, the cankerworm and the caterpillar and the palmer worm. He names the destroyers specifically. He does not gloss over the reality of what was consumed. He looks directly at the loss and He names it. And then He makes a promise so sweeping in its scope that no category of what was taken falls outside its reach. The years themselves. Not just the things lost within those years, but the time, the seasons, the chapters that felt entirely wasted and entirely stolen. God says He restores those. He has a way of compressing what should have taken years into moments of divine acceleration, of bringing you from where you are to where you were always designed to be, with a speed that makes the gap between your past and your destiny seem to close almost faster than you can track. That acceleration is woven into the fabric of what the woman He sent carries for you. When she steps fully into the atmosphere of your life and releases what she was given to carry, time itself begins to cooperate with the plan of God. Opportunities that should have required years to build begin to materialize in months. Connections that should have taken decades of careful relationship building begin to appear with the ease and naturalness of divine appointment. Provision that should have required years of accumulated effort and positioning begins to arrive in concentrated moments of supernatural supply that no natural explanation can fully account for. You did not lose those years. You were making deposits into a heavenly account that the enemy could see growing, but was never authorized to access. And the woman God sent carries the withdrawal authorization with your name, signed across it in the handwriting of heaven. She carries the legal right to release into your hands what has been accumulating with divine interest in the account that was opened on your behalf, before you were old enough to know you would ever need it. The transfer is not approaching. It is here. It is happening now. Receive it without reservation. Everything that has been spoken over your life up to this moment, every declaration of restoration, every promise of divine transfer, every word of authority that has been released into the atmosphere of your story, none of it can land where it was sent if your hands are closed. None of it can take root in soil that has been hardened by unbelief. None of it can be received by a heart that is still operating in the posture of someone who has been denied so long that receiving has become a foreign concept, something that feels more like a setup for another round of disappointment than a genuine invitation into the abundance that God has been preparing. And this is the most critical juncture in everything you have encountered today. Not because the blessing is uncertain, not because the transfer is in question, but because the one variable that God in His sovereignty has chosen to leave in your hands is the variable of your own reception. He will not force what He prepared into hands that refuse to open. He will not pour what He has held in reserve into a vessel that is still sealed by the accumulated cement of past pain. He is not in the business of violation. He is in the business of invitation, and the invitation has been extended through every word of this message, through every prophetic declaration, through every truth laid before you today, like a table prepared in the presence of your enemies. But an invitation requires a response, not a passive nod, not a thoughtful acknowledgement that dissolves back into the same defended posture of waiting that has defined too many of your previous seasons. The response that this moment demands of you is deliberate, active, and chosen. It is the decision to open what has been closed, to soften what fear has hardened, and to position yourself spiritually to receive at a level you have perhaps never allowed yourself to reach before. Because here is the truth that the enemy has worked most relentlessly to keep you from understanding. Receiving is a spiritual discipline. It is a learned posture. And like every discipline, it requires intentionality, practice, and the willingness to be vulnerable in ways that your history of pain has trained you to avoid at all costs. Every time you were denied, every time you extended hope and came back empty, every time you allowed yourself to believe that this time would be different and found the disappointment identical to the last, your soul built another layer of protective armor around the place where your expectation lived. And that armor, though it felt like wisdom, though it presented itself as the mature and reasonable response of someone who had been around long enough to stop being naive, was actually one of the most effective tools the enemy ever turned against you. It kept the pain out and kept the blessing out with exactly equal efficiency. It protected you from further disappointment. and simultaneously closed the door to everything that was being prepared for your arrival. God is asking you today to lay that armor down, not to pretend your history did not happen, not to dismiss the lessons that your seasons of pain genuinely produced in you, but to make a conscious, faith-grounded decision that the God who sent this woman to you is categorically different from every person and circumstance that built those walls in the first place. That his record of faithfulness is not the same record as the people who promised and failed to deliver. That his word does not carry an expiration date tied to the durability of your patience. That what he has prepared for you is not subject to the same limitations that governed every human promise that was extended, and then quietly abandoned when it became inconvenient to keep. This is the moment to receive, not when you feel more emotionally prepared, not when the evidence of your circumstances has shifted enough to make hoping feel safer. Now, in this exact moment, with all of your history present in the room, with your doubts still hovering at the perimeter of your consciousness, with your questions still unanswered and your wounds still in process, God has never waited for perfect conditions before moving on behalf of his people. He moved for Israel in the desert, not after they arrived in the promised land. He moved for David in the cave, not after he ascended to the throne. He moved for the disciples in the middle of the storm, not after the water calmed down. He moves in the middle of the mess. He meets you in the middle of your process, and the middle of your story is precisely where you are standing right now. What does it look like to practically position yourself for this reception? It begins with your internal posture of belief, not the performance of belief, not the external projection of confidence while your interior is bracing for the familiar collapse of hope, but genuine agreement with what God has declared over your life through every word released today. It means taking every thought that rises to contradict those declarations, every whisper that says this is too good to be true, every familiar feeling of unworthiness that suggests the transfer is meant for someone slightly more deserving, and bringing those thoughts forcibly into submission to the authority of Scripture. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5 instructs us to bring every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. Every thought, including the sophisticated ones, including the ones dressed in the reasonable language of caution and discernment, that are actually fear operating in a more convincing costume. It means dismissing the internal committee that has been conducting unauthorized meetings in your mind for years, the one made up of past pain, present anxiety, and projected future disappointment. That committee is not qualified to speak into this moment. Its members do not have the clearance to override what heaven has declared. Clear the room, dissolve the committee, and let the voice of God be the only voice setting the agenda for what you believe is possible for your life from this moment forward. Positioning yourself to receive also means aligning your actions with your declaration, because faith that does not produce corresponding action is not fully activated faith. When you genuinely believe that the transfer is real and that it is happening now, your behavior begins to reflect that belief naturally. You begin to create space in your life for what is coming. You begin to release what you have been gripping out of fear, the small and familiar things that feel safe but are actually occupying the space that the greater things need to fill. You begin to say yes to the things that align with the season you are entering, and no to the things that belong to the season you are leaving behind. You begin to prepare for overflow before the overflow is visible, because preparation in advance of the manifestation is one of the clearest expressions of genuine faith. And you begin to speak differently over yourself, over your future, over the specific areas of your life that have been most under assault. Because the words that leave your mouth are not decorative additions to your experience. They are generative forces that shape the spiritual atmosphere of your life in real and measurable ways. Proverbs chapter 18 verse 21 says that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. You have been eating fruit that was seeded by words spoken over you by people who did not have the authority or the accuracy to define your story. It is time to change the seed. It is time to open your mouth and speak in agreement with what the woman God sent declared over you. To become a co-laborer with heaven in the ongoing declaration of your own restoration. Right now, in this moment, I want you to do something simple but spiritually significant. Type in the comments below these words, "I am ready." Just those 3 words. When you type them, you are not simply interacting with a video. You are making a declaration before heaven and earth that the season of closed hands and defended heart is finished, that you are open, that you are positioned, and that you receive without reservation everything that God has been holding in reserve for your name. I am ready. Type it. Mean every syllable of it, and watch what begins to shift. Close your eyes for a moment if you are able to do so safely, and let yourself see it. Not with the eyes that have been trained by years of disappointment to scan every horizon for the next incoming threat. Not with the eyes that learned to keep expectations deliberately low as a form of self-preservation. But with the eyes of your spirit, the eyes that were given to you by a God who declared in Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11 that He knows the plans He has for you, plans for welfare and not for evil, plans to give you a future and a hope. Let those eyes open fully, perhaps for the first time in a very long time, and look without flinching at what your life is about to become on the other side of everything that has been spoken into it today. See the version of you that wakes up in the morning without the familiar weight of dread pressing down on your chest before you've even fully opened your eyes. That weight has been your uninvited companion through so many mornings, the one that reminded you before the day had even properly begun of everything that was wrong, everything that was lacking, everything that had not yet come through and might not come through, and had been promising to come through for so long that hope itself had started to taste bitter. That weight is not part of the picture of where you are going. It was part of the chapter you are leaving. In the life that is being built for you right now, through the transfer that is already in motion, mornings carry a different quality entirely. They carry the settled peace of someone who knows that the ground beneath their feet is solid, that the provision for the day is already arranged by a God who never sleeps and never forgets, and that good things are not distant possibilities being cautiously hoped for, but active realities unfolding with divine consistency on their behalf. See your finances transformed, not merely stabilized, not simply relieved of the most acute pressure so that you can breathe slightly easier while still walking the edge of insufficiency every single month, transformed completely. See the accounts that have been running empty begin to fill with a momentum that builds upon itself, where one door of provision opens and leads naturally to another and then another, where the opportunities that were always being redirected before they could fully form begin instead to arrive and remain and multiply beyond what your previous framework of expectation could have contained. See yourself giving with the freedom of someone who has more than enough, someone who no longer performs the exhausting mental calculation of whether generosity is something they can afford this month, someone whose own overflow has become the direct supply for other people who are still sitting in the place you are right now leaving behind. because that is the completeness of what God prepared for you, not just enough for yourself and your immediate needs, but an abundance generous enough to make you a vessel of blessing for others, a living demonstration of what divine restoration looks like when it is allowed to reach its full expression. See your relationships rebuilt from the ground up, with the quality of covenant woven into their foundation. See the loneliness that has been your shadow through season after season begin to lift permanently as people enter your life who carry the rare and precious quality of genuine commitment, who choose you not out of what you can offer them in a particular season or what your proximity can do for their own agenda, but out of authentic recognition of who you are and sincere desire to walk beside you in the long journey ahead. See friendships that go deep enough to hold the full weight of your real self without fracturing under the pressure of it, that offer the experience of being completely known and completely accepted at the same time, which is one of the rarest and most healing gifts that human connection can carry. See the companionship that your heart has quietly been aching for, arriving not as a desperate answer to loneliness, but as a divine appointment between two people who were each being prepared for the other through everything they separately survived, whose individual journeys through pain and growth produced in them precisely what the other needed to find. See your purpose fully activated and walking in the open without apology. See the calling that was pressed underground by the sustained weight of warfare and rejection, and the accumulated discouragement of too many closed doors, finally bursting through the surface with the unstoppable force of something that was always alive, always growing root structure in the dark, always preparing for the moment when the season would shift and the light would come and nothing would be able to hold it beneath the ground any longer. See yourself inhabiting your assignment with the settled confidence of someone who knows exactly who commissioned them and exactly what they were sent to do, moving through each day with a clarity of direction that the years of fog and confusion made you believe you would never find, but that was always waiting for you on the other side of the warfare. See the generational shift that your breakthrough produces in the lives that come after you. Because what God is releasing into your story through the woman He sent is not contained within the boundaries of your individual experience. It carries implications that reach forward through time into the lives of your children and their children, dismantling the inherited patterns that reproduced themselves in your family line without anyone choosing them, breaking the cycles that seem to have a life of their own independent of how hard anyone tried to interrupt them. See your lineage walking in a different inheritance, unencumbered by what was laid on your shoulders before you were old enough to understand what you were carrying, free in ways that you had to fight to become free, walking in spaces that your struggle opened for them without them ever fully knowing the price that was paid to clear the path. See yourself becoming for someone else what this woman has been for you. See yourself as a carrier of hope for the people who will come into your life in the seasons ahead, still sitting in their own version of what you are leaving right now. See your testimony becoming the evidence that another chosen one needed to keep holding on, the proof they required that the God who promises is the God who delivers, that the waiting does end, that the denial does expire, that the restoration does come, and when it comes with a comprehensiveness that redeems not just the loss, but the time spent losing. This is not the projection of wishful thinking dressed in spiritual language. This is the prophetic picture of a life that God has already fully designed, and that already exists in the spiritual realm, waiting with the patience of something eternal to become visible in the natural as the transfer continues moving through every dimension of your existence. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 3 says that the vision is for an appointed time, that it speaks of the end and does not lie, that though it tarry, you must wait for it because it will surely come, and will not delay beyond its appointed moment. Your appointed moment is not somewhere on a distant horizon. It is here. It arrived with her. It arrived with every word she carried that landed in the places of your greatest denial and began to call life back into what the enemy had declared permanently dead. The life you just allowed yourself to see is not a fantasy you are reaching toward. It is a reality you are stepping into. And the door is already open. Every force that has ever denied you has just lost its authority over your life. Read that again and let it settle into the deepest part of your understanding. Not weakened, not reduced, not temporarily suspended while it gathers strength for another assault. Lost, permanently, irreversibly, with the full weight of heaven's verdict behind the declaration. The season of denial is not winding down gradually like a storm that slowly loses intensity before it finally passes. It is ending the way God ends things when He has decided that enough is enough, completely and finally, and with a thoroughness that leaves no room for the enemy to rebuild what was dismantled. You need to understand the magnitude of what has shifted in the spiritual realm as a result of everything that has been released through this message today. You did not simply watch a video. You did not simply listen to encouraging words that will fade from your memory by the time tomorrow's demands crowd in. You participated in a divine appointment. You were in a room, spiritually speaking, where heaven's agenda was being executed and where your name was specifically on the agenda. The woman God sent does not operate in generalities. She does not release broad blessings over unnames's and hope that something finds its mark. She carries specific assignments for specific people. And today you were that specific person. Today, the word that left heaven with your name on it found the address it was looking for and landed in the soil of your spirit with the full force of divine authority behind it. And now the evidence will come. Not all at once in a single dramatic moment, though God is more than capable of that and sometimes chooses it, but in the steady, unmistakable accumulation of shifted circumstances that begins to make it impossible for you to attribute what is happening to coincidence or luck or the random turning of fortune. The phone call that comes from a direction you were not expecting. The door that opens in an area you had quietly stopped believing would ever open. The person who appears in your life carrying the exact quality of connection your soul has been hungry for. The financial shift that arrives through a channel that was not even on your radar. The physical improvement that happens without full, natural explanation. The sudden clarity about your purpose that cuts through years of fog and confusion and shows you with unmistakable precision exactly what you are supposed to do next. These are not accidents. They are the natural world catching up to what was already established in the spiritual world through the transfer that was released today. Do not talk yourself out of receiving them when they come. This is one of the most important instructions you can carry forward from this moment. When the evidence of your restoration begins to appear, the enemy will make one final attempt to convince you that it is temporary, that it will be taken away, that something will go wrong, and reduce what God gave back to something smaller and more manageable and less threatening to the limitations He spent years convincing you were permanent. He will whisper that it is too good to be true. He will point to your history of almost breakthroughs that dissolved before they fully formed. He will try to use your own memory against you, pulling forward every previous moment of hope that was followed by disappointment, and suggesting that this moment will follow the same pattern. When that voice comes, and it will come, you respond to it the way you respond to any voice that contradicts the declared word of God. You bring it into captivity. You do not engage it in debate. You do not try to out-argue it with logic. You simply remind it that the God who declared your restoration does not lie, that his word does not return to him empty, that what he has released over your life through the woman he sent carries his full authority and stands without the need of your defense, and that the voice attempting to create doubt is the voice of a defeated enemy who has already lost the verdict and is simply refusing to leave the courtroom gracefully. You are not the person you were at the beginning of this message. Something has shifted. Even if you cannot yet fully articulate what changed or how it happened, you know that something is different. There is a quality to this moment that your spirit recognizes as significant, as real, as the kind of moment that you will look back on months from now and identify as the turning point. The moment when the trajectory of your life began to move in a direction that your previous circumstances gave you no natural reason to expect. Trust that recognition. Honor it. Do not minimize it or explain it away with the comfortable language of skepticism that your mind reaches for when something feels too significant to be real. God is real. His word is real. The woman he sent is real. The transfer that was released today is real. And you, each one, are real. You are not a fictional character in a motivational story. You are a living, breathing, divinely appointed human being who was created for a purpose so significant that an enemy of ancient cunning calculated it was worth sustained and comprehensive warfare to try to prevent it. And that enemy failed. He failed because the God who called you is greater than any force that was ever arrayed against you, and because the faithfulness of that God does not fluctuate based on the intensity of the opposition, or the duration of the battle, or the depth of the denial. You were chosen before the foundation of the earth. You were known before you were formed in the womb. You were loved before you had done anything to merit love or fail to merit it. You were destined for this exact moment of restoration before you ever experienced the first moment of denial. And the woman God sent to you, the one who carries everything you have been denied, was also chosen. She was chosen to find you. She was chosen to carry what you needed. She was chosen to speak what heaven had been holding for you and to release it with an authority that dismantles every wall, breaks every chain, and clears every path that was obstructed between you and the fullness of what God prepared. Your destiny cannot be denied any longer. It has never been cancelable. It has always been protected. It has always been moving toward you even when it felt like it was moving away. And now the distance between where you stand and where you were created to stand has collapsed to the point where a single step of faith is all that separates you from walking in the fullness of everything heaven has held in reserve for your name. Take that step, walk in it, inhabit it fully, without apology, without the shrinking that years of being overlooked trained you to do, without the compulsive need to make yourself smaller, so that the abundance of what God is giving you is less conspicuous to the people who spent years telling you that abundance was not your portion. It is your portion. It was always your portion. And the woman God sent confirmed it with every word she carried for you. Now, before you go, I want to speak to you from the heart of this ministry for just a moment. This channel exists for one reason alone, and that is to find you, to reach into the middle of your waiting and your warfare and your quiet wondering if God has forgotten you, and to remind you with every video, every declaration, every prophetically charged word that He has not forgotten you, that He never will, and that He is always working on your behalf, even when the evidence of that work is not yet visible. YouTube removed the monetization from this channel. There are no advertisements supporting what you receive here. And yet here we are, week after week, because this is not a business. It is a calling. It is a ministry that exists because you exist. Because there are chosen ones sitting in seasons of denial who need to hear what heaven says about their lives. And that need does not pause because a platform changed its policies. If this ministry has found you in a moment when you genuinely needed to be found, if these words have brought something real and lasting into your life, and if you feel moved from a place of complete freedom and genuine gratitude to support the continuation of this work, there is a donation link waiting for you in the description below and in the pinned comment. Every contribution, whatever its size, goes directly into keeping this ministry alive and extending its reach to the next person who is sitting right now in the same place you were sitting when you first found this channel. And if giving is not something you are able to do in this season, please know that your presence here is already a profound gift. You being here, receiving this word, carrying it forward into your life, that is ministry in itself. If this message has stirred something real in your spirit today, like this video as an act of agreement with what God has spoken over your life, share it with someone who is still in the waiting, who needs to hear that the woman God sent is carrying something for them too. And if you have not yet subscribed, do it now and turn on your notifications, because what God continues to release through this space is not finished. The best is still ahead. You are unchained, you are restored, you are chosen, and your denial is permanently, irrevocably, gloriously over.